Hey, this is Brandon McManus, Denver Broncos Super Bowl champion, and you listen to The Scoop on alscoop.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to The Scoop, alscoop.com's podcast. This is Season 6, Episode 24 of the Kobe Bryant podcast. Kobe Bryant episode, or we could just call it the Kobe Bryant podcast, too. Just talk about.
I think we'll start a separate Kobe Bryant podcast. Just to be clear that we're not talking about Kobe Bryant on this episode. It is because it is the number 24 episode of the season. So we're all on the same page.
That is Sam Cohn you heard from, and Sam Neumann is with us as well. Kyle Gauss is off this week, couldn't be with us. Happy to be back talking to all of you about Temple sports, primarily Temple basketball. Got a little bit of football to talk as well. Plenty of mailbag questions to answer. Appreciate those as well. Guys, how you doing?
Honestly, pretty good. Sam, before you hopped on, I was telling John I've had a long week of school stuff. In all 5 of my classes, I have had a project or presentation to do this week. So I'm on the other side now that I've submitted my project for Professor DiCarlo's class, and I'm out the other side. So I'm happy we're near the weekend, but overall I'm doing well.
I submitted that earlier this afternoon. Had to secure one last interview and get that down. So I guess I'm on the same page as you. I've had a lot in my class. I wouldn't say I've had a project doing every class, but I've been busy here and there. But happy to be back talking with you guys.
Both of you guys got your work done well ahead of time, which I would expect nothing less. So appreciate that. We'll go over your stories in the podcast in our 5:30 p.m. advanced sports reporting class at Temple's Communication.
The night before or the morning of constitutes as well ahead of time these days.
Hey, it's
better than
starting at 5:29. Yeah,
exactly. It's better than 5:29.
5:30, it's fine, and we're going to go over everyone's stories tonight in class, kind of just digest the coverage and have some fun with it. But yeah, it's on time. It's on time. I didn't need it a week ahead of time, but yeah, good stuff, guys. So Temple did something last night that it hadn't done since January 26th, which is win a basketball game. So they snapped a 6-game losing streak. They're now 5-10 after being USF 65-47 in the second game of what are becoming these home and home series that have become necessary due to COVID and scheduling. So again, Temple's 5-10 now. It sounds so incredibly simple, but for a team that is looking to rebuild, looking to tinker with the starting lineup, whether that's, replacing Caleb Battle with Damian Dunn, because Damian Dunn has now missed 3 games with a knee injury, whether that's bringing in Nick Jourdain into the starting lineup and playing him 30 minutes and getting 3 blocks from him and a couple of threes. All of you who are listening and are Temple fans know where this program is and where it is not right now. And they're not where they want to be yet, but a lot of new faces, a lot of reshuffling. They just needed a win in the worst way. They got 22 points from Caleb Battle. 2 other players in double figures. Jeremiah Williams had 11. Dre Perry had 11. And, JP Mormon came off the bench, was pretty efficient in 24 minutes off the bench. Brendan Barry played 28 minutes off the bench. But they needed something to really just to stop the bleeding and, something to really just feel good about themselves. I mean, they needed that. So, your thoughts on the game, guys?
So, yeah, I'll take the reins on this one. Sam was occupied last night, but he's better breaking this stuff down than I am. But
when he says occupied, it makes it sound like I was doing something bad.
Yes.
No, the word occupied. I signed up for it's like a 3-week Zoom writing workshop with a Red Sox beat writer. It's like 3 weeks, then you get a one-on-one session. And it happened to be last night at Wednesday night at 7:00.
Okay.
So that was why I wasn't able to cover the game. Fortunately, my partner in crime, Carolina Sam, was able to take the reins. So
didn't want to make it sound like you were up to anything suspicious.
When he uses the word occupied, I don't want any assumptions being made.
Yes.
Anyway.
Anyways, there's a basketball game played last night. in the first half that they kind of took control of the game, and USF kind of came back. It was like a 21-12 at one point, and it kind of looked like Temple was going to run away with it, but UFC kind of jumped to the bit, and you figured, okay, they're trying to make a second half run. Temple goes into the halftime 34-30. They played pretty well defensively. Caleb Battle looked good, but they were still doing the same things that they did in the last game. They just said they were able to take the lead. Battle would score basket, then they would lapse on defense and so on and so forth. But USF wasn't really able to hit their shots, and I mean, they were rebounding. They grabbed 11 first half offensive boards, and it didn't really, and they were still down by 4. So in the break, Caleb Battle talked about it. They kind of just wanted to put their foot on the gas and come out the first 5 minutes and really attack, and they did. I think they had a lead as much as 21 at one point. Their shooting was much better. They went on a couple of scoring droughts at one point, but I think that they really, they were much more patient in the shots that they were getting. The spacing was a lot better. Caleb was a lot more disciplined. I think we've talked about the fact that, his shooting percentage hasn't been the best. Kyle, I believe, put out a stat, but he was 9 of 15 from the field, 3 of 7 from 3, which is better from him. Added 6 rebounds, 4 assists. Jeremiah Williams, he had 11. He had back-to-back 3-pointers, but he still went 3 of 11 from the field. But what he was able to do on the defensive end, and also out in rebounds and assists. I think I put this in my game story, but he helped, in part hold the UFC trio of guards that USF trio of guards. They went 13 of 33.
Ultimate fight.
They were in the octagon last night.
They were. So they went 13 of 33 from the field, and they
went to war last night.
We're just doing whatever we can to rattle poor Carolina.
Really are. Anyways, they went 13 of 33 from the field, and they turned over the ball 9 times. So, the defense was pretty stagnant there. I think noticeably, Jake Forrester really didn't do much, but they didn't really need him to. Nick Jourdain was impressive. J.P. Mormon was kind of came with like a vengeance off the bench and really delivered a spark. Dre Perry, he was in there and provided what he needed to, but and even Brandon Berry didn't play particularly well. I don't think he scored any points from deep, but he had some nice passes. And overall, but what I'm glossing over here, the story of the game is just the defense that they played. The zone defense, they look great. They talked about fronting the post a lot, and that's what they did. It helped that USF, their best player, I'm probably not going to say his name correctly because I'm terrible at name pronunciation, but Alexis Yenta. Yetno. Yeah, so he went down in the 5 minutes remaining in the first half, and they really took advantage of his absence. Michael Thurr just couldn't really do much of anything. So, Nick Jourdain in there has really helped their defense in the interior a lot. And the fact that they held USF to 17 second half points is very impressive. They shot 28% from the field. They turned over the ball 17 times. I think there's a lot of encouraging signs, but I think from this game, this is the team that what Aaron McKie has strived for, and this is the team that we expected to see, where they play stagnant defense, and they are able to shoot the ball at a better clip. The reason why they lose these games is they can either do one or the other, and finally had a complete game, even though that they went on separate scoring droughts.
Sam, question, and
that's literally everything that everybody did.
A question for you.
Don, go ahead.
Question for you, Boston Sam. Again,
Shoot.
At the end of the day, they needed a win. They didn't beat Villanova here. They didn't beat Baylor. But they did beat a team that they just faced a couple of days ago. And we know how tough that is when you're beating a conference opponent. You're beating a conference opponent that has a lot of tape on you, and then they have tape on you from just a couple of days ago. Yes, Yetna was out. Temple, of course, was also missing Damian Dunn. Trying to put this in perspective again, not trying to make USF out to be anything that they are not. But did this impress you a little bit that they were able to bounce back like this? Again, they had their own scoring droughts, as Sam pointed out. There's still plenty of stuff that Temple needs to work on. But to win this game by 18 points, to do it on the road again against the team that just beat you, to make some adjustments, and again, like fronting the post and not letting Yetna hurt them too much while he was in there. Is this a decent step forward for them? Again, not trying to overly inflate this, but were you impressed with what they did last night?
Well, I'm impressed because they won by 20. But a win like this comes from, as you said, making adjustments. The fact they played USF 3 days, UFC. The fact they played USF 3 days prior, they were able to which was a close game, but they were able to take what they did wrong and turn that into fixing things and making adjustments. And something that we've talked about before is, like Aaron McKie has said, in a season like this, it becomes less about, with schedule changes, and I don't know how much you relate this to this, but it kind of is along the similar lines of, it becomes more about what you can do to improve inward and within your team and make adjustments and make improvements. And I think that's clearly a lot of what Temple's been able to do within the last 3 games, just with Damian Dunn out, like inserting Caleb Battle in the starting lineup, inserting Nick Jourdain in the starting lineup, giving him 30 minutes against USF on the road. This was his 2nd career start. So making adjustments like that on the fly within a couple of days, I think, is probably the most impressive thing from this win. And the other thing I wanted to add is that we had talked about prior to the start of the season, if this Temple team is going to win games, if they're going to pull out wins against solid conference opponents, the way they're going to do it is by distributing the ball well throughout the offense, having different guys score, having different guys put points on the board, looking different ways. And in a lot of their losses, it's because they're looking too deeply at Damian Dunn to be the one to score the ball, or they're looking too much at Caleb Battle to be the one to score the ball. Caleb Battle had 22, and he had a great night shooting the ball comparative to the last couple nights that he's had shooting the ball, where his percentages haven't been as great. But they have 4 guys scoring double figures. And then Nick Jourdain also gives you another 2 threes against USF. Like, that's a really, they're spreading the ball out a lot more. And the fact that Brendan Barry still didn't score, like, if you add him into the mix, if he had hypothetically had a better night, they score maybe 70, 75 points, whatever it may be. So I think the most impressive part of this win is, it seemed like a lot of things came together while I was occupied. And it seemed like they were able to make a lot more things happen. They were able to, Sam, you had mentioned they had a lead at the half, and then they ran away with that lead in the second half. In the last couple of games, they have struggled in the first half and figured things out in the second half. So the fact they were able to put together a solid first half, go into the locker room with a lead, and then keep their foot on the gas throughout the second half, I think says more about, they're just putting a lot of pieces together, and they're still figuring out how to play 40 minutes of good basketball together. But nonetheless, this is a step in the right direction.
Sam, to just go off the point you just made about Barry not scoring, I thought Temple, that this was the first time they actually did a good job of getting him open looks. He had open looks. They just didn't fall, unfortunately. Sometimes that's how it goes with a shooting stroke. But I think that also talked about your point where, they were actually able to well distribute the basketball. And this is what happens. And imagine when they get Damian Dunn back, how, that'll be too. And Aaron talked about it. We want to get shots out of Caleb Battle. We want to get 15 shots Damian Dunn. And these guys are decision makers, or table setters, or distributors and that sort of stuff. I'm interested to see how the 3 of them are going to be able to play together. The 3 of them, I mean, Jeremiah Williams in there too, who Caleb Battle referred to as his court general. But I think that's a good problem to have. And I mean, if they're able to distribute the ball like they did last night, those will equate to more wins, obviously.
Let's talk about Caleb Battle for a second, because this is something that we needed to see out of him last night, because he gets the career high 32 points the other day against USF. But, it sounds like we're being nitpicky, but I think everybody kind of knows this. He got 32, but he needed 22 shots to get it. Yes, he had 10 rebounds. Yes, he had 5 assists, but he had 5 turnovers, and it's very clear that he still needs to work on his ball handling. I don't know if he's ever going to be I think at times he wants to be a ball dominant guard. And I think in the future, I think he will be better coming off screens or getting out in transition. He can obviously shoot the heck out of the ball, but there were a lot of things in a 32-point effort and a 32-point 10 rebound effort that he did wrong the other night, and it came in a loss. Last night was a lot more efficient, a heck of a lot more efficient. Going 9 of 15, 3 of 7 from 3. Now, he did have 4 turnovers, only 1 less, but just played a much, much better game. I think after the recent loss, I think he said, we're going to be ready. He is kind of mechanical and cliche with his answers, but he said, we're going to be ready. And he was, and Nick Jourdain was. And again, I know I keep saying this, I don't want to overemphasize what this win is, but they needed something, and they showed me something last night where I thought, okay, and I agree with you, Sam Neumann, like they did get Brendan Barry some looks. It's a shame that, it's taken them a while and he just couldn't get the looks down, but every team's going to defend them differently. They've got 2 games left before the conference tournament, but we saw some good signs last night. A couple of other notes to pass along. Again, if you follow Kyle on Twitter, he had a bunch of good stats after the game, as he typically does. And I'm just reading out some of these tweets here. And this first one pertains to Caleb Battle after shooting just 28%, which was 23 of 82 from the field in the first 7 games of his Temple career. Caleb Battle has made 48% of his attempts over the last 3 games, and that's including 2 games ago. He's averaging 25 points a game over that stretch. So again, as Aaron and other people have noticed, he can flat out score the ball. A few others to pass along. The only freshmen in the nation that are averaging at least 9 points, 4 assists, and a steal per game, while also turning the ball over fewer than 2 times a game. How's that for the level of detail? Are Jeremiah Williams and Florida State's Scotty Barnes. And Scotty Barnes was the number 7 player in the 2020 class. So that's some good company for Jeremiah. 5 Owls hit at least 2 3-pointers each last night. The first time a Temple team has done that since back on December 4th of 2002 against Charlotte. And that was a stretch of 598 straight games without accomplishing that feat. Was also the first time Temple has held the conference opponent to fewer than 50 points since Temple beat USF 61-48 back on February 4th of 2015. And since joining the American, Temple has held a conference opponent to fewer than 50 points 4 times. 3 times it's been against USF. So again, a lot of good stuff there. Some good stuff from Nick Jourdain. Temple's blocked just 31 shots this season. That is the fewest of any team in the American by 10. They pale in comparison to a team like Memphis, who's leading the conference in block shots. Nick Jourdain has 9 of those block shots, and he had 3 last night. Sam, we were talking about this, a couple nights ago in our group chat, and one of you said, wow, it sounds like John has a lot to get off his chest on this week's episode of The Scoop. And we were talking about, a lot of fans. There was one guy who reached out to you in particular, Sam Cohn, and said, well, they've got some good guard play, but they need a rim protector. And he said, I don't know that Jourdain is that guy. Nick Jourdain's pretty intriguing. And you've talked about how you think he has a higher ceiling than a guy like Jake Forrester. We've seen that he can pop out and hit some threes, but we've also seen that, he can flush the ball down and just blocking 3 shots last night, having just any presence there. Can we see, what do you see from him? You wrote about him in the article that you wrote a few days ago about the future of the program. Is this more, again, I'm not trying to overemphasize what Nick Jourdain has done. It's not like he's going out and averaging a double-double a night and was a McDonald's All-American, but Temple was hoping that they got an athletic steal in him, a guy that was a self-described project, as you've said. Is he really starting to turn the corner here, Sam, and make some of the progress that you hoped he would make?
Absolutely, I think so. Again, don't want to overstate what he's done in just a handful of games. He's played in maybe 8, 9 games. I don't have the number off the top of my head. 8 or 9 games this season. He's seen a lot of DNPs. He's seen a lot of garbage minutes. But it took him 14, 13 games into the season, and now he started back-to-back, and he's showing why he's starting back-to-back. Both, as I had mentioned in the piece that I wrote, that it's likely due to he had a really good week in practice. He's earned his ability to figure things out. Caleb Battle said post-game a couple nights ago that there will be times in practice where Nick Jourdain will have his way on the glass and he'll knock down shots and the interior will be his. You got to go through Nick Jourdain if you want a bucket. Or nights where Quincy Adamakoya in practice will hit 8 threes. And he said it takes time. It's because he said, this is Caleb Battle speaking. I was a freshman at one point. I went through that. Everybody goes through that as a freshman. You start to figure things out and put things into practice on the floor in games. And Nick Jourdain is absolutely turning that corner, as you mentioned. You had mentioned that I said he has a higher ceiling than Jake Forrester. And kind of what I meant by that was when he first came in, my understanding of his game, which I admit was slightly off, whatever, was he was going to be more of like a Dre Perry type guy, the kind of guy that would get up and down on the wing, that would more so be a 3 or 4 that they could let get up in fast breaks, can play in the interior, but more so they want him to stretch the floor. Clearly that's not exactly what he was doing. Much of his game up to this point has been banging down low, has been getting rebounds, has been, defending the basket, being an interior defender, playing with his back to the basket, which is a really similar style of play to what Jake Forrester does. I think they're both very similar players. The one caveat is that Nick Jourdain, in a matter of, I'll say 2 starts, 12 games, whatever you want to call it, has knocked down 4 threes. Jake Forrester has taken, I don't think, a single three, and he's taken less than 3 shots beyond 10 feet. And
Yes,
Jake Forrester was
I was
Jake
going to say
Forrester.
ESPN stats tried to give him a 3 last night.
Jake
You
Forrester
missed
did
that
not hit
because
that
you were
three.
occupied, though.
I was occupied. Jake Forrester's had this. I mean, don't get me wrong. Jake Forrester's a huge presence for them in the interior and a big part of what they do when he's able to stay on the floor. But he hasn't been able to develop much of a jump shot, and they've looked for him in certain sets to try to expand his game, but it just hasn't happened in almost 2 years now. Whereas Nick Jourdain has been able to find it in just a matter of a couple of games of playing serious minutes and getting those looks. So I would say that from the sample size that we've seen, I think that Nick Jourdain does probably have a higher ceiling of being a similar player to Jake Forrester, with the caveat of being able to stretch the floor when he needs to. And then when you introduce someone like Sage Tolbert into that lineup, or whoever this mystery transfer big is, maybe, like, that opens up so much more for the offense. And I think Nick Jourdain's only going to get better just because he's shown in talking to him that, we've said it 100 times, that he's a self-described project. Like, the first step to getting better is realizing that you're not great. Once you realize you're not great and you got a ways to go, that's when you get better. And he's shown that his work ethic is really, really strong. Getting shots up after every game and earning those minutes and earning that court time has been admirable.
So last week I'd said to you guys, if a Temple fan came to you and said, are they headed in the right direction? And if so, what would your reasoning be there? Yeah, you said they are. Sam Neumann, you said they were. I think Kyle said yes. Sam Cohn, you said Rome wasn't built in a day, using a tiny little cliche there. But and then of course you had the story that you wrote the other day for our subscribers, and it's kind of funny. One of our subscribers had said had picked out one of the last line of your story, where the line is like, the potential for a bright future is there. And I said, hey, in the interest of full disclosure, I edited that. I think your original line was, the future looks bright, or there's a bright future there. And I sometimes I'm certainly not out on Aaron, and I certainly don't think they're headed in the wrong direction. But again, you've seen some things that have concerned them, excuse me, and they're not out of the woods on turnovers, and they are going through some growing pains. But if we do kind of hit the reset button on this, albeit just 2 games later, again, there's a lot of great depth in Sam's reporting if you want to check out the story that he did. But it does seem like so far, minus obviously the wins, they're 5-10. The most they could be is 7-10 heading into the conference tournament. We have a mailbag question about this. I don't think they're going to schedule any additional games. But we're starting to see what we need to see from some of these guys. You've seen something tangible from Damian Dunn, certainly. You've seen something tangible from Khalif Battle. You've seen, I don't know that we knew quite what to expect from Jeremiah Williams. We knew he was a tough Chicago point guard, or a guy that had played some point, played some 2 guard. He's looked better than we might have expected. And the fact that you're seeing anything from Nick Jourdain, and that Aaron has been kind of liberal enough to say, all right, I'm going to start this guy. JP, you're going to sit. Not necessarily anything you did. Are you starting to see enough where you feel good about saying, again, granted, it's 1 win, but are you starting to see enough where you're saying, okay, yeah, maybe they could win these last 2 games and head into the conference tournament with a little bit of momentum? You still feel this week the way you did last week for both you guys?
I think they're headed in the right direction, but I wouldn't make any bold statements that they're going to go into the conference tournament and win a couple straight and find their way into the tournament. I don't think they're there yet.
Yeah.
I think maybe they make it out of the first round, depending on who their matchup is. But if they're one of the bottom seeds, they're probably going to play, SMU or Memphis or Houston, which probably wouldn't go well. But I think in the grand scheme of things, they are headed in the right direction. And I've said this when you look at this season as a whole, it's hard to pass any for me at least, it's hard to pass any long-term judgments on what teams are able to accomplish, because they didn't have a preseason. They had a delayed season, and they had sporadic practices for the first third of their season. So essentially, you're giving a team two-thirds of a season to figure out how to play together when you have 9 new guys in a rotation, and you're figuring out a lot of these pieces. So the way I see it is, they were able to make a couple things work. They were able to be in a lot of these games while taking 10, 15 fewer shots than opponents. If they don't turn the ball over that many times, they're getting equal number of shots. I think they win a lot of these games. They're right there in the rebounding battle maybe not on the offensive glass, and they're letting a lot more offensive rebounds than they probably should, and they're turning the ball over a lot more than they should. My point is that they're showing glimpses of a lot of things that make me believe that when you look at this team next year with what we hope is a normal offseason, with a really good recruiting class coming in, with a year under their belt, with guys starting to turn the corner and figuring out how to play together, Aaron McKie understanding this group a little bit better, I think that all those signs point to the future is bright on North Broad. But I can't see the future. I don't have a time machine. I don't have a DeLorean. As much as I want one.
As much as you wish DeLorean. What's that? It's fuel. Throwing the banana peels in there.
Exactly. When I was getting my first car, when I was like let me rephrase that. For most of my life, I was telling myself, when I'm 16 and I get my first car, I'm buying a DeLorean. I'm not a DeLorean. I'm buying a flux capacitor on the internet and putting it in the back of my car. And I never did. But again, I don't have a time machine.
Where do you get a flux capacitor on the internet?
Probably either Amazon or I would just make one. And I just didn't do either of those things.
Sam
would have been cool.
You was obsessed with Back to the Future, Sam Cohn, or no? Well, we
unfortunately not. I think it's a great movie. I don't really have a movie that I'm obsessed over. I mean,
you're obsessed with Oasis, but you're not obsessed.
No. The only movie that I can that I'll watch anytime it's on and could probably tell you as much about Sam probably not as much, but maybe a little bit of Superbad. That's the one movie every time. It's
Superbad's terrific. Yeah.
Another classic movie that I've seen over and over again with my dad. One of our favorites that we watch together all the time is Fletch. Love that movie.
Oh, Fletch. See, you guys have old souls. I can respect that. You're reaching into the 80s for Fletch and Back to the Future.
Fletch is so good.
Yeah. Sam reaches into the 90s for Oasis.
One of the worst sequels of all time, though.
Yeah, I haven't even seen the sequel to Fletch.
It's so bad.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
The scene where he goes to the proctologist and he starts singing Moon River is just is tremendous. I mean, the whole thing is great. Anyway, Sam Neumann, you're on board with Sam Cohn here. You think things are headed in the right direction, all things considered?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said the same thing last week, and I had no reason for that. I mean, they went 1-1 since we last talked, and they kind of wrote their wrongs last night. But no, I have no reason not to believe that they're not headed in the right direction. I think you have to look at it in a vacuum. The fact that, like as Sam mentioned, this is a year unlike any other. They were not allowed to get that development and get that proper transition coming from high school to college and get these guys acclimated. That just didn't happen. And then finally, when they're able to get them on the court, you had pauses. You had, this, that, and the other. And they've done, knock on wood, they've done a good job of keeping that. And the rest of the American has kind of just been dealing with the COVID issues of their own. So Temple's had this, had games canceled here, whatnot, had the schedule, games 48 hours in advance, that sort of stuff. So they've had a lot of thrown at them. And as Aaron has mentioned, I mean, they're learning how to win. A lot of these guys haven't been on teams that have been winners. I mean, yeah, JP and Dre were in a playing game of the tournament, but they were sophomores back then, and they weren't they were contributors, but they didn't play as many minutes as they did now. So there's not a lot of that winning. They're learning how to win because not a lot of these guys know how to do that at the collegiate level. So I think that everything that's happening right now has to be taken with a grain of salt to be okay, let's look at the good things. Obviously, the bad things are something that needs to be taken care of. The turnovers are inexcusable. And last night we saw what they can do when they don't turn over the basketball. They got to get better at rebounding. They have to do better at some maybe running plays so to get their players open, like Brandon Barry and that sort of stuff, and in-game adjustments. But I think everybody is learning on the fly, and I think they're doing, the best job that they can. Obviously, that we've mentioned that things need to get. There's certain things that need to get better, and they have time to fix these things. I think we would be sitting here and be called homers if you think that I would say that, hey, yeah, Temple's going to go to the tournament and they're going to win it and they're going to end up in playing in March. I think, yeah, can they sneak in and win? Can they sneak into the American tournament and maybe win one or two games? Sure. But and any team can get hot, but I think Aaron wants his team to go in there and make some noise, and hopefully they can use it as valuable experience going forward. And I just think that, from where we were last week, I don't think much has changed, but I think, last night showed you what this team can do when they put it all together. And that's the vision that Aaron has, to where they can be a defensive nightmare for opposing teams. And that's what you get when you're bringing in, what they were hoping for when they brought in all these guys, and having, a big guard like Jeremiah Williams, and, they're still waiting to get Sage Tolbert back, but then you have Zack Hicks, who can probably play the 2 through 4. And then you have guys like Hasir Miller, who's a pretty strong defensive player. So I think that's where they wanted their bread and butter to be. And it's taken some time to really tone in on defense, because when you're turning the ball over 17 times a game and you're getting 15 less shots, of course you're going to be giving up 70, 80 points and getting out rebound on the offensive glass. But I think that you got to look at this team through the lens of what they're going to do defensively, and if they're able to do that defensively, I think they'll be able to be strong suited down the stretch, because I think that's always been Aaron's mindset, is to build a defensive minded team. I mean, if you look kind of at how they were last year and going into this year, and it's been hard because you have young players who need to learn on the fly how to play defense, because it's all varies at what you're taught at the high school level. Like Aaron has mentioned, he wants Quincy to get better on defense. He wants Caleb to get better on defense. But then you have somebody like Jeremiah Williams, who's from Simeon, a tough guard, who's already way more advanced than Caleb, who's 1 or 2 years older than him, and more advanced than Quincy, who's the same age. So the development's all over the place a little bit. But I think you'll start to see. I think we can all see the seeds being planted, and that's the most important thing here.
So last night, here's a clip from Aaron McKie talking to reporters after last night's game, and he's talking a little bit about the 6-game losing streak, and then learning how to win and what that's been like for this program. So here's Aaron McKie talking to reporters last night after that win down in Tampa over USF.
Yeah, we're learning. We're learning how to win, and it's not easy, especially when you're playing a lot of young guys. Jeremiah Williams played 34 minutes, and Caleb Battle played 34 minutes. Nick Jourdain played 29 minutes. We're asking a lot of young guys to do a lot of big things for us out there. It's going to take a lot of experience, but they're gaining it, and they're comfortable with it. So the more experience I can give those guys, I think it'll be better for our program moving forward. But I'm excited. Anytime you get a win, the feeling is always good. Never, when you're losing, but I think, we're learning from our losses, and hopefully, we keep, building and getting better.
All right. So speaking of Temple's future, Carolina Sam mentioned Hasir Miller, the point guard from Newman Goretti, coming in, and also Zack Hicks, the wing guard from Camden Catholic. Both these guys have been playing very well so far in their high school seasons. Sam Cohn, you had the opportunity to talk recently with John Brennan. He's been on our podcast before, assistant coach at Newman Goretti. We know, again, that Hasir has been playing very well, had the triple-double in a 1-point overtime loss to an Archbishop Wood team that has several D1 prospects. And what do you have, 30, 12, and 10 in that game?
Something ridiculous like that.
So started a little slow. I've noticed that in a couple of his games. I haven't been able to see him in person, but I watch as many of his games as I can on YouTube. And we'll in a couple games to start a little slow. We'll kind of drive in, kind of test the environment in there. And a couple of times he's had a shot block. I think that's maybe the one concern about his game, is he is about 6 feet, 6'1", and is going to have to find a way to get past guys. But he is tough. He is determined. And then he obviously really, really picked things up, against, Rasul Diggins wasn't really guarding him much of the time, but you've got him, you've got Shepard, Randolph, those guys. It's a pretty loaded Wood team. He's playing really well. What did John Brennan tell you about how he's playing so far? How Fabe, as he's known, as his nickname, is playing so far?
So if you've read anything I've written on Hasir Miller, or if you've listened to our podcast, you know that, he's a proven scorer, and he's a really good defender, and he's the epitome of what it means to be a Philly tough guard. He's a little bit undersized, but that means nothing to him because he fights for everything on every single play. He's a really hard worker. So with that being said, I talked to John Brennan, and I basically asked him, like, listen, we've had multiple conversations dating back to late spring, over the summer, the fall, kind of where his game has progressed. And I asked him, like, where's his game at now compared to the last time we talked? What's something that he's really improved on? He said that, which it's funny, John, it's funny you mentioned that he's had slower starts when he's getting into the paint, getting the interior, kind of feeling out what he's able to do against certain defenses. Brennan had mentioned that he doesn't exactly have a stat for it, but when he drives into the lane, he's gotten a lot better at going off 2 feet and drawing contact, at getting into the interior, feeling out the defense, as you had mentioned, and then planting on 2 feet and going up with it into contact. He said he's had at least 1 or 2 and ones almost every game they've played. So that's really kind of the biggest thing that he's improved about his game. He said, of course, he's worked on everything, but that was really the one thing that stood out to him this season that he's added to his bag. Being able to score the ball in the interior, going off 2 feet, draw contact, and get and one opportunities. And the quick thing I want to mention about Zack Hicks, I had read a little bit about him. And that's another guy that Temple's bringing in the 2021 class that is also a 1,000-point scorer. And Zack Hicks has really refined his game as someone who can score in the mid-range, coming off screens, coming off pin downs, in that 12 to 15-foot range. And he can shoot the three, but his bread and butter seems to be scoring from the mid-range. Which is something I had talked to him about before, but like that's kind of his sweet spot: mid-range attacking, catch the ball, turn and face, and then make a decision from there. And he's pretty lethal with the ball in his hands.
All right. So again, Temple has 2 games left so far. Again, there's a mailbag question about this. I don't know that they're going to be adding anything else to their schedule, but and again, there's another mailbag question about this too: what the roster is going to look like next year. They have 1 scholarship at the moment that would be open for 2021. That would be if everybody comes back. We'll see if that's the case, but obviously fans are going to be keeping their eyes peeled to follow the progress of Fasir Miller and Zack Hicks, of course, 2 of the better players in the area. So we'll obviously have more coverage on them down the line. Flipping things over to football, you look at another team that's had a bit of a roster overhaul due to all the transfers. We've talked about that. One guy that could get more snaps this year in the secondary is MJ Griffin, freshman or redshirt freshman, I guess, from Saline High School out in Michigan. Sam Neumann talked to him, a story that we have out there for subscribers, got an interview with him, talked about his relationship with Amir Tyler. Again, you can read that on the site. We don't want to give away the whole thing, but Sam, just if you could give us a glimpse of what that conversation was like with MJ, and we'll hear some audio from him in a second here.
Well, yeah, no, MJ is one of those kids who came in with that 2019 class where it was like, okay, I'm being recruited by Jeff Collins and his staff, and then he signed his national letter of intent with during Manny Diaz's 18-day tenure as the head coach, and then he was amongst the guys who was kind of like in the woodwork. And could anybody blame him for going elsewhere if he's 9 hours away from Detroit? No, but he stuck with it. He was being recruited by Northern Illinois while he was there, so he wasn't unfamiliar with the staff, and now he's formulated some nice relationships with Tyler Yelk in there. In the story, he talks about that how he likes to be coached, rather he likes to be, critiqued rather than complimented, and is one of those players who likes to be coached hard. What I kind of gathered is he kind of had to learn how to be patient, and who to learn how to be patient from than Amir Tyler? Because when you come from being one of the better players in your area, you come in with the chip in your shoulder, like, okay, I'm going to play it right away. But as I mentioned in my story, that's not really the football, unless you're, a different breed of a player. Like, you're not coming in and playing right away at a developmental program like Temple. And MJ kind of had to learn that, and he's ready to make his presence known, but he's in, embarking on that journey of being patient and understanding his role. I think you're going to see him more maybe in some packages where he'll play the nickel a little bit more. Unfortunately for him, he plays the same position as Amir Tyler, and obviously Amir Tyler being a single-digit player, one of the most vocal players in Temple's locker room, and being one of their better defensive players, he's going to play over MJ. I think what MJ was telling me, I didn't include this in the story, is that Temple wanted him to work on his mobility a little bit better. So that might be not why you might not see him playing at that field safety position, but you're going to see him on special teams a good deal, I would imagine, and maybe just more defensively. For our subscriber content, what we had, I spoke with Jeff Knowles. He spoke highly about him. They've always spoke highly about him. I think he's a player who's ready to break out, but we'll wait and see. But as John mentioned, we have a clip of audio right here to share, and here is MJ just talking about his relationship with Amir Tyler and how that's kind of benefited somebody coming from 9 hours away and really learning how to acclimate himself within the program.
I actually learned almost everything, because when I first came here, I didn't know anybody. I'm from 9 hours away. I didn't know a single soul, really. So he just took me on his wing, and me and him been like tight ever since. So yeah, being on his wings, he actually taught me a lot. He taught me how the game goes. He taught me how practices go. He taught me how to show up in the weight room, how to act, how to be around, these coaches, and how to, especially on game day or for traveling, he taught me how to do all that stuff. So he really helped me out and took me on his wing.
All right, so great stuff again from Sam Neumann. If you haven't had the chance to check out that story, please do. That's up on the site now. If you're an owlscoop.com subscriber, you can read that story. Would also strongly suggest that you check out Sam Cohn's story as well on the future is now for the Owls. Again, two of our best pieces this week for our subscribers. So check them out when you get a chance. We'll head over to the mailbag now. These are questions from our subscribers from the message boards. We will check out the basketball mailbag here. First question comes from D Thomas 96. Any idea for a team we could play in between the Wichita game and the conference tournament? I asked around on this a little bit today. It's not looking likely. I was told that they're likely done. The only conference foes that are missing are ECU and Memphis, and neither of those teams have openings. In terms of non-conference games, if you're thinking regionally, the A-10 is going to be in their conference tournament pretty soon. Most of them are most of the other teams out there that might be possibilities are committed to their conference schedules. So I don't think that you're going to see anything else there, like a situation like a Marquette that says, oh, hey, we'll go out to North Carolina or something like that. I don't think we're going to see anything like that on the horizon. Next question, we'll have to pick one out here from the screen name is The Hick. He has a ton of questions here. I'm trying to pick out one to answer. I don't know if guys we're looking at this, but the first one is what is our barrier to winning? How do we get out of our offensive struggles? Can we run set plays to get our best shooters open looks? It almost sounds like he just wants to ask these questions of Aaron McKie. I'm trying to think of the best one to pick.
All right, quick.
What is the barrier to
rapid
win?
Fire.
Well,
Rapid
okay.
fire.
Oh, you want to do? We'll do rapid fire with Sam Cohn here. I like that. What is our barrier to winning?
Experience.
How do we get out of our offensive struggles, including the inevitable 4-minute scoring drought we seem to suffer through in every half?
Health and an off season.
Do you believe in the 3 is more than 2 dependence on three-point shooting? How can we get free from mid-range jumpers?
If you can shoot them at a high percentage, yes. If not, then no. Take where you can get it. If you're not shooting the ball well, get the ball inside and then bring the ball out and try again.
I like this, Sam. Can we run set plays to get our best shooters open looks?
Yes. Watch any basketball game ever. That's usually how it works.
Yeah.
They can, but they play pretty free-flowing offense.
How do you handle the sight of your team making so many turnovers? Do you work on boxing out in practice? What is preventing our good athletes from getting a body on opponents? Actually, I'm not following true rapid fire format here, so let's back up. How do you handle the sight of your team making so many turnovers?
How do I handle it, or how do they handle it?
I guess
how do they handle it?
I think he's putting it in the terms of like, how does Aaron McKie handle it?
Yeah. You tell your team to stop turning the ball over. I'm sure he doesn't handle it well. I'm sure he harps on them a lot about turning the ball, limiting their turnovers. I mean, it's something that frustrates him a lot.
Yeah. How do you work on boxing out in practice? Another no-brainer.
So there's the drill where 2 people stand at the top of the elbow or on the 3-point line, and someone will shoot the ball and you'll miss on purpose. And then both those people or a third person or whomever will, generally it's 2-on-2. So like one person box out, one person has to get the rebound and you fight for it. Other one is you roll the ball out and you have to go dive at it. That's another way to like fight for balls. Rebounding, a lot of rebounding is just heart and hustle. You can only teach so much about boxing out. You got to put a body on someone.
What is preventing our good athletes from getting a body on opponents to keep opponents off their offensive boards?
It's a play-to-play scenario. Sometimes they're in bad positions. Sometimes they're getting outside. Sometimes they just have a size disadvantage. It varies by play.
Heart and hustle.
That too.
Does the 4-out offense make it nearly impossible to attack the offensive glass?
No. If you shoot and everybody goes after the board, it's possible. But I guess in certain situations, you can be in a tough position. It can make it tougher, but I wouldn't say anywhere near impossible. That's just a matter of a ball goes up and you can't ball watch. You have to go after the glass. And
not everybody can go after, right? Like we've talked about that can really affect floor balance. If a bunch of people clumsily go in there, then you're creating a fast break opportunity.
So the goal would be if everybody boxes out, then you're kind of in better positioning.
Yeah. A couple more here on the rapid fire front. How do you address the players' epidemic of leaving their feet as they approach the basket, which results in poor angles to get to the rim and or results in rampant turnovers when they try to throw the misguided late in the shot clock passes to the wings?
Say that again? That sounded like two different questions.
This is a mouthful. How do you address the players' epidemic of leaving their feet as they approach the basket, which results in poor angles to get to the rim and or results in rampant turnovers when they try to throw misguided late in the shot clock passes to the wings?
So that means like you drive to the hoop, you go up for a shot, you realize you're not going to get a good look, and then you pass it?
Yeah, I'm assuming so.
I would say, how do you fix that? Either take the shot and take the contact, or see the floor and make the pass before you go up in the air. I don't know. I don't really have a clear answer for that one, I guess.
All right. So that ends our rapid fire session with the Hick. We appreciate his numerous questions. Next question comes from TU Owls fan 2004. Might have asked this last year, but what's your go-to song for the first nice day outside? I'm assuming this is because it was 54 degrees and sunny yesterday, which was probably felt like 75 to us after all this snow. I'll turn this over to you guys first. What's your go-to song for the first nice day outside? Sam Cohn,
you take it first.
Okay.
I mean, I'm obviously going to go with an Oasis song here. I think for me, I immediately thought of Don't Look Back in Anger because, I mean, of the lyric, step outside, summertime's a bloom, even though, it's still February and it's not summertime and it's not like that. But, it's a great song, one that popped in my head. A few others off the same album, maybe some might say Cast No Shadow. What's the Story? Morning Glory is a terrific album. And then off definitely maybe I would say Supersonic. But if I had to pick one, it would be Don't Look Back in Anger.
I don't know if I have one right now. I was saying before we hopped on the podcast that I vividly remember being in John's office recording this last year and getting this question, and John and I going back and forth with songs. But I will stick with my same answer that I went with last year just because I don't know if I have a new one. And that is the song Floats My Boat by Air, A-E-R. That's a great summer, nice weather, standing on my roof with the sun beating down in my face, getting sunburned. And that's a great summer tune.
I think John could give us 30 different answers here.
You know which one I like, and then a quick Oasis story for you, Sam. Like my one beef with Oasis, my song, and I think of a lot of them. But have you guys ever heard "Summer Madness" by Kool and the Gang? It's an instrumental by Kool and the Gang, and it's the one that DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince sampled for "Summertime." Do you know that?
I've probably heard of it before. It's one of those where I heard it, I'd probably know it.
I think you even hear it. I think there's even a short clip of it in Rocky, and it's not in any sort of summer scene, but it's just this great 70s synth part and just this heavy bass line. I just love it. And again, it's just, even if it's just slightly spring-like outside, I can't say I listened to it yesterday, but that would be my song. Sam, here's my one beef with Oasis. So Kyle teases me about this band. Every 4 months, 6 months, he just did it recently. A few days ago, I said, what's your methodology on this? Is it just comedy? Is it just instinct? I'm a big NXS fan. They were a big Australian rock band. They were kind of at their height in the mid 80s, early 90s. They were kind of, up there with U2, REM, sold a ton of records, played a lot of big arenas and stuff like that. And then I forget the exact year, some point in the 90s. The Brit Awards in 1996. Michael Hutchence, who unfortunately later took his own life, was really charismatic frontman for INXS. They won this British video, and it was presented by Michael Hutchence. And Noel Gallagher comes up and says that has-been shouldn't be presenting awards to Gunnabes. And I was like, damn, no, that's harsh. And it bothered Michael Hutchence. I thought, I love both of these bands. It's not unlike them to be polarizing, but that's my one beef with Oasis.
Yeah, I mean, that's just who they were. I mean, they were probably on, they were probably on drugs on the time to be on.
But I will say too, the other cool thing about them is we were talking recently about the Bee Gees documentary on HBO, which is fantastic. And they're a band that's close to my heart. I'm older, but I think they're brilliant. And they talk about the dynamic between brothers, and Noel Gallagher's featured a lot on that one, makes a bunch of cracks about, the ups and downs of being in a band with your brother, because they've certainly had their misgivings and all that stuff. So some good Oasis content this week.
Always a fan of Oasis content. I'm here for it.
Yeah. A few more to get to here. Next one comes from HBG Al. Might be too late to get this question in. You're not, HBG Al, so appreciate it. But based upon the scholarship situation right now, if Taj Thweatt transfers from West Virginia and wanted to come to Temple, do you think McKie should sign him? Why or why not? I know what my answer is, and it depends. What do you guys think about this?
I mean, I raised my hand. I'll take a crack at this first. I would say yes. They should sign him. There's not really a downside to it for me, but I think he's a player that would definitely fit well in this team. I think this also with the caveat that you're expecting maybe one or both of Arashma and Ty leaving in that scenario. If you have those scholarship spots open up and maybe one or both of them leave, in terms of JP and Dre and maybe a more roster attrition than we would have thought, yes, absolutely, you take Taj to the walk. But I don't know if we can really say that and sit here and say that we don't know what's going to happen. But say that does happen, yes, absolutely, you take him and don't think twice about him.
Sam Cohn?
If you are losing guys and you have extra scholarships, I can't think of a reason why you wouldn't take him. If you only have one more scholarship with this 2021 class, I would say no, because he's 6'7", and all this talk about needing a big and needing someone in the interior and needing someone to get rebounds. Taj Thweatt's 6'7". I probably wouldn't take him if you have one scholarship. If you have a handful to work with, I can't see why you wouldn't.
Yep, you guys nailed it. Just depends on what happens with roster attrition. Whether they get a transfer big, doesn't even have to be a grad transfer now. I think they do need somebody who can rebound, be a rim protector. That's not really his game. And again, I've been told that, if he starts to get a few more minutes, again, for a very good West Virginia team, maybe he doesn't transfer at all. Obviously, he's extremely close with Jaleel White. They both played together at Wildwood Catholic. But, yeah, if the roster stays the same, and my guess is that it won't, we don't know for sure. No, I agree with you. He would not be the one scholarship I would use. I think I would go with a scoring guard or a big before that. But if the room's there, sure, you take him if he wants to come back home. This is a very involved question. Screen name 82 Al. Although it is still months away, if you had a crystal ball, what would the starting offense and defense look like for next year? That's for football. I don't know how in depth you guys want to go with this.
Rapid fire this one.
Yeah,
okay, let's just do it with a caveat that Jaden Blue and Randall Jones are staying put.
Yeah, which appears to be the case. I could kind of run point here. Starting quarterback next year.
Deuce Mathis.
Sam Cohn.
Sorry, I was on mute. Deuce Mathis. Sam, you can take this one. Let Sam fire away.
Starting tailback.
Iverson Clement.
Sam Cohn.
Again, we can let Sam Neumann take these.
Oh, I thought you meant, okay, gotcha.
No, yeah, I can do the rapid fire since Sam got the other rapid fire.
Yeah. Okay, starting tailback, Iverson Clement. Starting wideouts, again, assuming that they're going with 3.
I would say Jaden, Randall Jones, and I would say Ahmad Anderson Jr. too, just because he can play inside outside. I don't know if they're ready to put Jordan Smith on the outside just yet.
Who's on the line?
Left to right, go Isaac Moore, left tackle, Michael Neese at left guard. Michael Neese at left guard. CJ Perez at center. Adam Klein at right. No, Adam Klein at either right guard or right tackle, and then Wisdom Corsi at either right guard or right tackle. Those two I feel like are interchangeable, but I did like how Neese played at left guard at the end of the season.
Tight end, probably an easy one.
Dave Martin Robinson.
Yeah, we got everything there, right?
Yeah, we got offense entirely.
All right, defensive line.
I would say interior. I would say to start off the year, if everything goes according to plan, Zach Gill and Weston Kramer. And then I guess maybe coming off the edge, I would say Manny Walker and Evan Boozer.
Linebacker.
Oh, no, actually, I would say Manny Walker and Will Rogers.
Yeah, there you go. How about a linebacker?
Linebackers, I think this is a tough one. I think Kobe Wilson, Vandy Rigby, and Will Quinku.
Yeah, and again, we're kind of going simple here. 4-3. We realize that there are a bunch of different variations, but doing this off the top of our head. How about a corner?
Keyshawn Paul and Elijah Clark.
Interesting. And safety.
Amir Tyler and Alex Odom.
There we go. All right. Good job, Sam. Next question here. Speaking of Weston Kramer, D-Blaze75 has a two-part question. And again, it kind of plays into what we were just talking about, the football roster. The commitment of defensive tackle Weston Kramer seems to be an underrated, very good pick of a player who can come in right away and make a difference. What are your thoughts on him? Kyle had tweeted this out at the time that they got him as a transfer. Obviously, the staff is familiar with him. He's coming in from Northern Illinois. And this is from Kyle's tweet. Out of interior defensive linemen who played at least 100 snaps in 2020, Weston Kramer was ranked as the 7th best run defender in the nation by Pro Football Focus. Again, I know some people love the Pro Football Focus stuff they put out. Some people, kind of say, well, I believe in some of it. I don't believe in all of it. But I think we can agree it's a much needed pickup for them in the interior of the line. Sam, but you would talk to CJ Perez about this, right?
I'd spoken with CJ Perez, and obviously CJ was teammates with him at Northern Illinois. At the same time, he probably went up against him in practice. Interior defensive line, interior offensive line. CJ Perez said, Weston is a high-energy, high-effort guy that plays with a lot of intensity. He's a strong kid that plays very aggressive, funny, goofy guy that loves making people laugh. He's going to help our team a lot. And then I asked him, it seems like you guys, like just saying, like a standard statement, seems like it's a really good get for you guys. And he said, absolutely. I think he'll help our defense a lot and will definitely have a positive effect on the guys off the field as well.
Mm-hmm. Second part of his question, and I think this is a good one. What are your thoughts on the Owls' current cornerback situation? Keyshawn Paul, Ty Mason, and Freddie Johnson, I suppose, are the top three right now. The rest are so young. Do the Owls likely add a transfer with 1 year remaining or at least 2 to 3 years? Any potential transfers come to mind? I agree that it's I don't want to say a huge hole on the roster, but a definite area of concern, I would say. Sam, you said Keyshawn Paul and Elijah Clark, kind of forsaking Freddie Johnson, Ty Mason.
Yeah, that was just a shot in the dark.
No, and it's good. I mean, what do you think they do here? Do you think they try to add another transfer, just to add some experience?
When I spoke with Jeff Knowles, it seemed like that they're going to add a cornerback. In my personal opinion, I think that they add two. They try to add somebody who has a year left, and then maybe somebody who has more considered team control, except it's college, so maybe a couple more years of eligibility. But I think you're going to see a lot of the guys in the mix here. I think they're going to mix and match a lot. They're going to play 3 defensive backs. I think right now you could probably – maybe I'll take back my answer. I don't know. I think Elijah Clark might end up being the starter, but I think Freddie Johnson has not really been a guy who's been able to stay on the field a lot. I feel like he's been hurt a lot, and he's had off-the-field issues as well. Keyshawn Paul, everything we've heard about him. So I think the most corners we're probably going to see right now that are on the roster are Keyshawn Paul, Ty Mason, and Elijah Clark, with Freddie Johnson kind of sprinkled in.
And there's some intrigue there because we know that, obviously UConn did not play football this past fall. When they did 2 years ago, Keyshawn Paul was very good, very good player. One of the, not a stretch to say, one of the better cornerbacks, one of the better cornerbacks in the country, pretty good player. Elijah Clark has got some size, but again, depending on how much you want to make out of last season with all these guys playing and then missing time, Elijah Clark definitely had his ups and downs. Freddie Johnson, we know how lightning quick he was coming out of high school. He's a converted receiver. We just have to see if he can put it together.
He's got with a lot of hamstring injuries, though.
Yeah. And I just have here my notes, I don't know, maybe, and again, these guys are young. Does a guy like Deion Hawkins from the Haverford School, does he turn the corner? Does a guy like Garrett Williams turn the corner? It's so tough because this is where we feel out of touch. And I think we've said this before. We feel fortunate to be able to cover games, whether we're in the press box or on Zoom, but there was no spring ball last year. We have to see what spring ball may or may not be like. You learn so much, even if you can only watch the last 15 or 20 minutes of practice. If you see anything at all, sometimes if you just see special teams work and that's what they let you see, then it is what it is and you can't really make stuff up. But, if you can see some stuff here and there, when Ron Carey and his staff first came in, I think his first 6 or 7 preseason practices were wide open. It was great. And you can be there and you can hear them say twos, get out there. And you can say, okay. Freddie Johnson's running with the twos. Maybe he is going to get beat out here. And, oh, look, Elijah Clark had a good rep there. Or, Deion Hawkins is in and he had a good rep there. He had several good reps there. Then you can kind of really start to intelligently form your opinions. it's just been so hard to do that. But it's one of the biggest no shit statements of the year. It's like, this is such a critically important spring for them. And I think Rod Carey's kind of, like Matt Rule, like Al Golden in the past, where they're pretty genuine with you. If a guy's starting to come around, they just start mentioning their name. I think Jeff Collins tried to get a little too cute with that stuff at times. But, I think in the spring, when you talk to a coach and you can say, yeah, who's flashing, who looks good, we don't know yet, but that's obviously a huge area of concern. So we'll see what happens there. Last question here comes from Mission Man, another good one. With all the starters who, for one reason or another, are no longer with us, who either graduated or hit the portal, do the moves we've made in response, do we have enough of a nucleus that we're in a positive state with our path now to build upon it, which would be 2 thumbs up? Or have we been hit so hard that we actually have to rebuild it, where a winning record over the next year or two is unlikely? And I think that's really what we're looking at with football, right? I mean, it's interesting, not to get too far off track. Aaron McKie and Rod Carey are both going to be entering critical third years next year as head coaches, separate sports, separate circumstances. But I think that's the biggest question that Mission Man is hitting on here. Can they replace what they lost? Are the guys who take over gonna put a chip on their shoulder and say, hey, it was addition by subtraction. You don't want to be here, get the hell out of here. We got it. If Will Rogers can take over here, Keyshawn Paul can take over there. Christian Braswell, if you don't want to be here, I can step in. So I guess his question is, have they been gutted enough to the point where they're going to be a sub 500 team? Or do they have enough where they can be at least maybe a bowl eligible team, and they can say, all right, they might have something here. Again, this is minus spring ball, minus preseason camp. This is very much off the top of our heads as we sit here on February 25th. What do you guys think? Have they lost too much to where you kind of have to lower your expectations and say maybe they're 4-8 team, 5-7 team? Or do you think they got enough out of the transfer portal and maybe a couple of impact true freshmen where they could be at least a 6-6 team, or at best maybe a 7-5 team?
Can I say yes and no? Like, I think
you say whatever you want, Sam.
Okay, so and let's say yes on the surface, so they've lost a lot of their nucleus, but that team also did go 1-6 last year. I think people need to be reminded of that. There was a lot of external circumstances with COVID, but they still, as Bill Parcells says, the record says what your record says. You are what your record says. So, I mean, if you look at it from the grand scheme of the basketball team, see all the roster turnover and then see a team who didn't have that necessary time to gel, you see what's happening right now. They're learning how to play with each other, and they're 5-10. So if that happens, if for some reason, I know there's expectation that not to get, into COVID right now, but the expectation is the vaccine will continue to roll out, and we'll probably have a better looking football season than we did this past year. But if, they're not allowed to do what we think they're going to do, and somehow that, that gets lost in translation and they're not able to have the spring ball that, they might have expected to, then, okay, I'm going to look at it and say, okay, this is a team that's going to have to learn in the 4-8, 5-7. But for me, I'm looking at this as a team who's going to be able to get in that spring practice. They're going to be able to gel and whatnot. Right now, I would say, just looking at the roster, I see them as a 500 team, just because I think you're asking a lot of players to step up. You're asking players to immediately gel. You're asking a guy like Deuce Mathis, who, he has started one game in his career. So you're asking a lot out of players to do much. But I think on paper, I think that they did as much as they can to replace that nucleus. And I think they went in the transfer portal and they got a lot out of it. And they still can very much, stick their hand in the hat and pull out more names. So, you know what? I think that they're fine. But, they're, like I said, they have that caveat to where, like, if they're not able to have that spring practice, not able to gel, you might see similar to what happened with basketball.
All right, here's John DiCarlo submitting. Oh, go ahead, Sam. Go ahead.
Just really quickly, I don't think you necessarily have to lower your expectations just because of the success they've had in the transfer portal with bringing guys in. But as Sam mentioned, I think there's a part of the part of the fan that has to manage their expectations for what to expect a year after a COVID season and with all these new faces in Rod Carey's third year. I think there has to be part of you that manages your expectations you can't have these lofty goals and expectations of a bowl team after all the turnover they've had and, in Rod Carey's third year and following a COVID year. I think you at least have to manage that, but lower expectations is a little much just because I think they have had a lot of success in the portal. All
right. So here's my mailbag question for the two of you. And again, it's football related. if Temple is going to be a 6-6 or 7-5 bowl eligible team next year, it's because this guy had a great season on offense and this guy had a great season on defense. You can go obvious here. You can go, a little bit less than obvious. Sam Cohn, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Sam Neumann.
I think I'll go obvious for my offensive answer. I think if Deuce Mathis comes in and is a really good quarterback, gets the starting job, has a successful season, fills a need at quarterback, I think that's huge for your offense. And if you do keep guys like Randall Jones, if you can keep that receiving core together, if Deuce Mathis kind of make things work offensively, it starts with him. So I'm going to go obvious for offense. For defense, I'm going to say Will Rogers. I think if that defensive line and that front seven, I think, has more success than they did last year, if they can rebuild that front seven and that D line, I think that would be huge for Temple.
Sam?
Yeah, I'm going to piggyback on Sam's answer I think the offensive one is just too obvious. I think a lot of it depends on the quarterback position. I think they just have so many pieces around returning. I mean, obviously it all depends on pieces that they added to where, like, yeah, things can happen, but I think it all depends on the play of the quarterback at the end of the day. And if I think the obvious answer is Deuce Mathis. In defense, I want to go a little bit out of the box. I was thinking of want to do another transfer like Sam, but I'm going to say Will Quenku. I think if Will Quenku has a great year, things will be looking up, especially because, I mean, he played pretty well last year. He got a slow start, but I mean, this is his 6th year in the program coming up. So why not? Let's roll the dice on Will.
I'm going to go. Can I answer my own mailbag question? Is that a violation or no?
I don't think it's a
We'll allow it.
We'll allow it.
We'll allow it this time, yeah.
On offense,
don't let it happen again, though.
Don't let it happen again, DiCarlo. We're going to have a problem. I'm going to go Rayvon Bonner on offense. He's about, as of now, we're looking at just the heights and weights that are listed on the roster. Rayvon's a little bit of a bigger back than Iverson Clement, and we don't want to exclude Tavon Ruley. I think Tavon Ruley, in a perfect world, is giving you 5 or 10 carries a game as opposed to like 15 or 20. I think if Rayvon Bonner, and again, both these guys are kind of rested. Rayvon Bonner played some and then opted out, and then Iverson Clement has been, very lightly used at Florida. You look at, and again, I mean, the obvious answer is Deuce Mathis. He's got some pieces around him. If Jaden Blue and Randall Jones have indeed decided, to stick around, and you've got David Martin Robinson, you've got several guys coming back on the offensive line, and, maybe some of these younger guys come along like a Devon Fox or maybe a Kwesi Evans. We'll see who flashes in the spring. You've got some playmakers around you, but, as much of, sometimes back and forth headache that Ray Davis could be, you did lose your starting tailback there. We'll see how much he plays at Vanderbilt, but he's gone. And if a guy like Bonner can come in and give you 15, 18 carries a game and can steady the offense and allow them to establish a running game, I think that gives them a real shot. On defense, I'm going to go Keyshawn Paul because, again, I mean, what conference doesn't throw the ball a lot? I mean, you could say that some Big Ten teams are kind of old school and like to pound the rock a little bit more than throw it. But, again, a lot of people like to go 4 and 5 wide, but especially in the American, they do. And if he's as good as advertised, and he's a Miami kid, played at Jackson High School down there, if he can come in and you have one, as cliche as it sounds, if you have one lockdown corner and he can be something similar to a Sean Chandler or a Rock Ya-Sin or something like that. I'm not saying he's that exact type of player, but if you have one guy that's going to limit damage on one side of the field for a league that throws so much, whether it's UCF or even Tulsa is coming around and Houston and all these teams that they have to play, I think if he has a really good season, again, we're not minimizing what they lost in terms of Ifan Maje and especially Arnold Ebiketie. I think if you get a really good year from him, I think you got a shot. So there I go, answering my own mailbag question. So anyway, that'll do it for this week. Thanks so much for sticking with us for the extra day. We normally record on a Wednesday, get this out on Thursday, but we wanted to record after last night's game and get this out to you guys. You'll probably be hearing this either later tonight or Friday morning. So we'll be back with you next week. Hopefully Kyle will be with us, and we'll talk to you soon.